And then he still has 2 Day of Judgments. He still has a Tumble Magnet. He has a couple copies of Into the Royal. He's up 3 and 3 with his counterspells. But he's Mirror Crusader also. It seems odd that you choose to play Mirror Crusader in your Caw-Blade deck alongside Day of Judgment.
It's like a hybridized the two. So for those of you just joining us, I'm Gavin Verhey here with Jacob Van Lunen. We're heading into round 8 of 9 here at the Star City Games Open Series in Louisville, Kentucky. On your left, Wyatt Urbahns. He's playing a blue-white Caw-Blade deck that's like a mix of the old and the new. He's got, like we were just talking about, Tumble Magnet, Day of Judgment, Gideon alongside Mirroring Crusaders. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Otherwise, a lot of things you would expect, save for 2 Surgical Extraction in the sideboard, which are a little unique for the Vengevine decks.
Now, what Conley was saying specifically was that the deck that, like the Soul Sisters deck, is weak to Day of Judgment and Gideon. 2 cards which conveniently have not been in most Caw-Blade decks this week or the week before.
Right,
and
they're in this one.
Player has both. Yep. So
and Neil Michalares once again playing the Soul Sisters deck. It's Soul Sisters, which gains a bunch of life and then uses the creatures to take advantage of it, but it also has an infinite life combo with Phyrexian Metamorph, Lean-In Relic Warden, and any creature like Soul's Attendant that gains life when it enters the battlefield. So there's Soul's Attendant.
A Day of Judgment drawn by Wyatt Urbahns. That's going to be
big problem.
Pretty good here.
There's Squadron Hawk for Wyatt, and it's kind of, you're going to have to look for when Neil's cards are. They're like off to the bottom. They might need to get pushed up a little bit.
Yeah,
but
ask Neil to move his cards to the right a little bit.
But he led with turn 1 Plains Soul's Attendant.
And now we're
what we can see though, just more cards are going to like.
Now Neil goes up to 21 because of the Squadron Hawk.
Yep, they're already gaining life. And when you're trying to plink away with 1/1s, gaining a life every turn can be a big deal. So that's a Glimmer Post, gaining Neil a 2nd life.
I'm surprised he didn't save that until he had a Johnny's Pride Mate in play or something. He had another Plains he could have played.
Well, there comes down Stoneforge Mystic. Even the Soul Sisters deck wants Stoneforge Mystic, and primarily for that reason, Batterskull.
Batterskull. There it is.
You have the Batterskull. It conveniently has lifelink while also being a 4/4 Vigilance.
And when it comes into play, you gain 1 life?
Yeah, that's right. You get a Germ Token when it enters the battlefield. Just does everything.
It's everything you want it to.
Pretty cool stuff. Alright, so let's see. Wyatt goes for another Squadron Hawk. Looks like he's going to give his opponent a life and passes the turn back.
So now Neil's up to 25 after this Sarah's Attendant. Sarah Ascendant, I apologize. Words that start with A, and then with NT.
And there's also Soul's Attendant in the deck, so it's...
All right, gets Neil down to 22. Plays another Hawk and passes. Neil's going to drop this Batterskull onto the battlefield.
Yeah, there's the Batterskull.
And he's going to get a Germ Token. And he's also going to pop up to 25, I believe, from the bird.
25, correct. So now he's just 5 life points away from triggering that Sarah Ascendant and having a 6/6 flying lifelinker. And once that gets active, I can tell you from experience, it is a rough time for your opponent.
Yeah. Now, what he can also do here is he can play Sarah. Soul's Attendant. So he can go up to 30 right now. He has the tools.
Let's see, so you have another creature you can play after the Soul's Attendant?
Yeah.
Pointing out this Batterskull.
Yeah, that's why he should have been at 27. Yeah.
There's the Attendant.
Yeah,
and then there's the Relic
28, and this will put him at 30.
Okay. And now he's got a 6/6.
So he's at 30. He's going to crash in for 10 life-linking damage.
Whew. Yep.
That's kind of a beating.
What an explosive start.
I mean, things are... If his opponent didn't get no, he's at 30.
Apparently he's at 29. Maybe we just had it wrong.
It's not optional. The life gain.
The optional is optional.
Oh, it is optional on this one.
It is up. Yeah, on the old one on Soul Warden, it is not optional. That's why this is an upgrade or an upgrade in a design perspective.
Oh, okay.
Because if you miss a trigger, it just doesn't happen.
Okay.
That's the big difference. So if he missed a trigger somewhere, if his opponent got him on it, then maybe that's what happened. Or maybe we just had the life total up one too many. I don't know. It's very possible. Regardless, Neil's still in a pretty good position here. His Sarah Ascendant is 6/6. He's got an active Batterskull. He's got a Spell Skite.
Yeah, I don't hate Wyatt's chance this game, though. I think if Wyatt can just stall until he draws that extra land, a Wrath of God, wraps this game up.
Yep, I mean, it definitely hurts Neil. It looks like Neil is holding another Sarah Ascendant in his hand in case that happens, but, I mean, certainly being careful. There's a Tectonic Edge, too, which would, if Wyatt finds a fourth land, would send him back.
If it comes into play tapped, it could actually send him back a lot.
Yeah. Looks like Neil's going to serve in. It's a matter of with what? Spellskite getting in there? All right.
Yeah,
so
this one I think you just send with the team.
Yep.
Because the only way you can really lose now is a Day of Judgment.
Even Spellskite gets in there.
And that's a good play, him sending the Spellskite in there. He wants to be able to redirect a Condemn to it if need be. His opponent only has 3 points of power on the board. He can't really be hurt by it.
I agree. I think that's a wonderful, very small margin play a lot of players wouldn't see.
Yeah. All right, so he's not going to take any damage, but Neil's going to gain another 10 life.
10 life. That's,
pop up to 44.
That Sarah Ascendant is not shrinking anytime soon. I'm kind of surprised that he didn't attack with the Stoneforge Mystic here.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think I would have sent in with it, but...
We'll see if the 1 point ends up battering.
Oh, does he have Metamorph plus the other piece of the combo in his hand? I think he does.
Well, if he had Metamorph, he could cast it right now and go infinite.
Yeah, I know, but I think he was playing around Mana Leak. I think he has Metamorph or Relic Order, Relic Order in his hand.
He definitely has Relic Order in his hand. I saw it earlier and thought he was going to play it. So we'll see what happens. So Wyatt draws. For those of you who don't know how the combo works, you have first you have a way to gain a life every time a creature enters the battlefield, and then you play a Lean in a Relic Order, which doesn't do much on its own, but when you play the Metamorph, it comes into play, its ability triggers, it's still an artifact, so it targets itself. You, it leaves playability triggers because it's now a Relic Order, so it comes back into play, and you gain 1 life, and you have it copy Relic Order again, it targets itself, and so on, so you just go infinite with it and gain as much life as you want. So Wyatt Shump blocks the Sarah Ascendant.
Goes down to 10, and Neil will go up to 56. And let's see if that is a Metamorph in Neil's hand, because Neil's just going to go up to 1 billion if it is now. All right, so no second white swords.
Yeah, this is a pretty rough spot for Wyatt here.
I mean...
He just packs it in.
He packs it in.
That's all there is. So despite Wyatt having a Day of Judgment in his opening hand, Neil has a pretty good draw and runs over it. Wyatt got a little mana screwed.
Yep, let's see how many lands Wyatt's playing here. Wyatt has 26 lands.
26 lands. Yeah. 1 Ink Nexus, so that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, he's not really cheating.
So looking at their sideboards here, I want to see what's in the Soul Sister sideboard. So Hex Parasite, that's an interesting card you can bring in. It's good against Planeswalkers, especially Gideon Jura.
Yeah.
Honor of the Pure gives you a Beatdown Bent, if you think that's going to be useful. Mortar Pod, Divine Offering, Brave the Elements, Core Firewalker, Spellskite, Sword of Feast and Famine. Out of all those cards, what do you think is going to come in here?
He's definitely bringing in the Divine Offerings. I wouldn't be surprised to see Mortar Pod. Honor of the Pure might be good. I don't know. I haven't played it in this matchup, but I can't imagine an effect like that is bad. But then again, Wyatt's deck has Gideons and Days, but Neil doesn't know that. So if Neil thinks that Wyatt's just playing like a normal stock blue-white Clawblade deck the way they exist in their current form, then Neil's probably going to bring in like Divine Offerings, the Mortar Pod, and maybe some Honor of the Pures and the Hex Parasite. But I think in Game 3 we're probably just going to see 5 cards in the form of Hex Parasite, Mortar Pod, and Divine Offering.
And probably Sword of Feast and Famine too, right?
Oh yeah, I guess Sword of Feast and Famine definitely comes in here. Oh, I like that he has sort of body in mind over the... Wow, did this guy come up with this deck independently?
Yeah, it seems like I don't think he's affiliated with Conley at all. So
he even got the like came up with like the same equipment.
Yeah,
package as Conley.
that's really impressive. Yeah, I don't think
so.
He just tested a lot. Yeah. Well, once again, like we were talking about earlier, independently reaching the same results, right? Conley was like, well, I think everyone else is doing it incorrectly. I think you should be playing with equipment in your deck, and I think you should be, playing
body and mind over
playing body and mind over feast and famine. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
Yeah, Honor of the Peer is a really interesting card in this matchup because it can give you a quick beatdown start, but it's really bad if your opponent has a way to temper your creatures. And I don't know if that's what you want to go for. The question for me is, what is he going to be taking out?
Well, if he's bringing in Honor of the Peer, he's definitely not taking out Hawks. But I guess if you're bringing in Mortar Pod, you don't want to take out your Hawks either.
Do you think Spellskite is still good in this matchup?
No.
So you cut the 3 Spellskites?
Yes.
Okay.
But I don't know what I cut beyond that. I haven't really played with this deck much.
I mean, maybe you can swap out one sword for another if you want to. I mean, you want the relic. You need all of your combo, obviously. You need Stoneforge Mystic.
I like all 3 of these equipment better than Feast and Famine in this matchup.
Okay. I can see that. I mean, War and Peace, definitely, I think you want to leave in. The question is just if you want to board out Body and Mind for Feast and Famine. And I think there are times where either of them is good in the situation.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I kind of... There are a lot of situations where I feel like I just want Body and Mind in my deck to put on a Pride Mate that has a few counters so it can't just get Jace bounced. And, like... Because sometimes you put a few turns into making that Pride Mate, like, as good as it can be. And a Jace can just make all of that go away. And it's not like they're not going to play their Jace anyway. Like, it's just the best card. So... Having a Body and Mind can just lock it up a lot of the time.
I think
it's also just good to like mill a Callblade player sometimes.
Right. Well, and the extra 2/2 is actually pretty important, so you can ride one creature to victory. So the big question for me is actually, I think a lot of the sideboarding here depends on what Neil thinks is going on. If he thinks his opponent has Daze, if he thinks his opponent has Gideon, then he wants to sideboard in a more conservative manner, where he can recoil from that position. If he doesn't think his opponent has those cards, then you want to sideboard it in a way that you just go as, super aggressive with Honor of the Peers. So we'll see what kind of plan Neil goes for here. So he does have the Mortar Pod. We figured he'd board that one in. Looks like his hand is double Soul's Attendant, which is pretty
4
awesome.
lands and Mortar Pod. Not a great opener, though.
Not great. Are any of those lands, I see a Glimmer Post hiding there.
I think there's a pair of Glimmer Posts. I think he only has 1 white mana and 4 lands, and...
Oh, well, he keeps it. Preordain from Wyatt on turn 1.
And he has the 2 best cards in the world on top of his deck. He must be looking for land.
Yeah, that's also when your opponent has a Preordain on turn 1. Usually that's an indicator they either need a 2-drop or are looking for lands, because usually it's right to hold your Preordains and cast them later on. And there's Stoneforge Mystic.
There's Stoneforge Mystic. So he's going to go ahead and grab a War and Peace. Or I guess you grab Batterskull. I guess you always grab Batterskull, man.
War and Peace makes all your creatures unblockable, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, that is nice here. It just seems like your opponent's going to empty out their hand. So that half of it's not really going to be that effective. And they're like kind of like gaining an arbitrarily large amount of life,
sure,
you know what I mean? So
yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true.
Okay, he plays the...
I'm not sure how relevant the life gaining for yourself is either, especially when your opponent has infinite combo available to them. So Neil's staring at a Squadron Hawk that he just drew. It's a pretty good draw.
Not a bad draw step.
There's
All right, Neil's going to go up to 22 here, and he's going to search his library for 3 Hawks, I guess. There's 2 Hawks? 2 Hawks.
And well, he only has 2 Hawks in his deck too. He can't get 3. So.
Oh, it looks like he took 1 out, maybe.
Well, there you go. In Wyatt's sideboard, it looks like he probably brought in his 3rd Day of Judgment, perhaps some Ousts. Other than that, I don't see a ton here. Maybe or Divine Offering is probably a good card for Batterskull. But besides that, it's probably the extent of the changes that he made. So Squadron Hawk comes down. Yeah, I think that the only 3 Squadron Hawks is a pretty interesting decision. I feel like in this case of Squadron Hawk, where you can tutor for it constantly, having the 4th is relevant enough to cut another card for it. But, I mean, if you look down the list, it's all 4 ofs and a bunch of targets with 3 Spellskites. So, obviously needed all the other cards. Maybe I feel you could maybe cut a Spellskite, but if you felt something else, like Splinter Twin is going to be relevant today, then maybe that's not right. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
All right, he's going to get in for 1. drop Wyatt down to 19. Wyatt's stuck on 2 lands again. I think Wyatt kept a 1-lander with a preordain on the play.
Oh, wow, that is pretty risky.
A very aggressive play.
I mean, I try to never keep them on the draw. I've done it 2 or 3 times, I think, but I always feel really sketchy about it. Keeping it on the play does not make me feel much better. There's a mortar pod from Neil.
And Neil's going to go up to 25 here.
Neil sitting at X11. A win here would put him into 6-1-1 going into the last round. And then a win after that could potentially lock up a top 8, depending on how his tiebreakers are. Let's see. So there's Batterskull down.
And Neil's a few options here. Like, Mortar Pod's actually quite good in this spot because you can just, block and then sacrifice the Mortar Pod in response. So the turn before Neil plans on, hitting 30 life to turn on his Ascendant, he's probably just going to do that. And if his opponent plays a Hawk, he can actually gain a lot of advantage.
I mean, I see the
his opponent gained a Hawk, yeah. So
I see the Ascendant sitting in Neil's hand. I almost thought he was going to block there and then unload his hand next to him to load his Ascendant up to be a 6/6, because then it's rough for the Batterskull, like it gets around the Batterskull.
But because he has another Soul's Attendant in his hand, right?
Right.
So yeah, you could play the other Soul's Attendant.
And then play the Ascendant.
Yeah, and then gain 1, 3, plus the 1 that he's getting from the Hawk right now.
I think he's got a Glimmer Post he hasn't played yet either. I'm not totally sure.
So
yeah,
he would have been
totally
at 30.
Sure on that.
Okay.
But instead he opts to not to. And draws a Sword of Body and Mind.
That's pretty good.
All right, so here down comes Glimmer Post, which will give Neil a life.
So he'll go up to 24 now. He's going to imagine he's just going to play a Soul's Attendant, going to 24. Then play a Hawk, going to 26. A Sarah Ascendant going to 26, then a Hawk going to 28. And he's going to attack with this Hawk. Or I guess not. I guess he doesn't want to trade a Hawk for a Hawk. Wyatt can... Wyatt's probably not playing another Hawk this turn, though.
I mean, on Neil's hand, like, he wants to be pretty careful because he knows that Wyatt is mana screwed, but at the same time, he doesn't want a couple of top decks to allow Day of Judgment to ruin everything that Neil's been building up toward. Yeah. Especially because with Wyatt being mana screwed, if he gets to the Day of Judgment point, his hand is going to be full of just gas.
Yeah.
All right, so down comes another Hawk. So Neil has to play carefully, but he also has to be aggressive enough. Is that 3 Day of Judgment sitting in Wyatt Urbahns' hand?
Yeah.
That's 3 Day of Judgment. So if Wyatt hits 4...
He's at 31 now.
It's rough. So that Soul, or that Sarah's Ascendant, I know the feeling, is active. And I played this deck at Nationals, right? So it's active, and... when your opponent discards Day of Judgment in his end step,
he has another.
Like,
he has to.
You know it's a pretty bad sign, right? See what happens.
If I saw that Day of Judgment, I would just start turning everything I had in play sideways, basically. Like, I mean, I know you can't because of the things, but you have to. I think he has to use this Mortar Pod to kill a Hawk, and then he has to turn all 3 of his flyers sideways on his turn.
Oh, I mean, like, you have to, just because. I mean. You have to race him. That Batterskull is a problem on the ground. You can't attack on the ground, but all the flying dudes need to get in there.
Yeah. What does he have in his hand? Anything? Oh, he has the...
He still has the Sword of
Body. Ooh, it's the Sword of Body in Mind. That's actually pretty good. So he has another land too, right?
I'm not sure if he does or not. Oh.
I think it's a Glimmer Point.
He does. He does have a plan, so he could equip it this turn. He'll probably get chumped by the Hawk.
Yeah, but I mean, that seems really good to me. To just, like, if you...
Is it better to clear the skies of this turn, serve in with everybody to make sure you get the damage through, and then for sure equip next turn?
Oh, okay. So he doesn't want his opponent to gain the life of the Batterskull, so...
Oh, nope, he just chooses to equip.
Yeah.
And serve for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yep, coming in with all the flyers.
And his opponent has the opportunity to block. So, all right, Chump blocks the one with the sword. Takes 7.
And Neil's going to go up to 37 here.
Yep. Or yeah.
I love the arbitrarily large life count of the Soul Sisters deck, like, consistently, basically.
Oh, man, yeah. I remember there was a match at Nationals. I got to over 100 against Valakut.
Good luck having enough mountains in there.
It's always a good feeling. I actually lost that game, but it still makes for a good story.
That makes for a better story.
He played Inferno Titan. That was bad news.
It's interesting. Yeah, so he's still on 1 white mana, so he needs actually just a raw plains, which he's playing 4 of in order to.
Glacial Fortress.
Oh, Glacial Fortress has it too. Yeah. So.
There's another Squadron Hawk.
So he has 7 cards in his deck where he's going to. He doesn't have any more. You have no more Squadron Hawks.
All right, and so this turn Neil can equip Mortar Pod, shoot down that Hawk if he wants to, and then re-equip it to another guy to prevent Battered Skull from gaining any life, which is pretty nice. Let's see. Yeah, when you discard Day of Judgment, you know it's a rough.
Yeah, you know it's rough times.
So let's see. So if Wyatt hits another land, the game still takes a rough turn. Now Neil is in a pretty good situation.
Yeah, he's got a nice little pad though to work with too.
If Neil, even if he gets Wrath, he'd maybe still come back from it. But I mean, the fact that Wyatt has all these cards, he can all the cards he can play. But I don't know. Conley Woods is walking by, and he seems pretty excited to see the Soul Sisters deck under the lights. Pretty much the exact list that he was brewing for this tournament.
I don't like Squadron.
Conley says he just doesn't like Squadron Hawk. What were you playing instead of Squadron Hawk, Conley?
2 point stacks, and I know I'm supposed to either. He doesn't have an Inquisitor XR.
He doesn't have an Inquisitor Exarch, which is the big card Conley said earlier was really nice for him. That it both gave him some reach.
He doesn't have Mortar Pod, 4 Inquisitor Exarchs, or 2 point stacks. Instead, it's 3 Hawks, 3 Spell Stacks.
And Conley didn't have Spell Guide either. Still pretty close to Conley's build. And on that turn, you saw the sort of Body and Mind connect, milling out 10 cards. All right. Well, there's a land, but it comes into play tapped. Meaning Neil likely has 1 more turn before Day of Judgment happens.
But it's actually fine for Neil, like, because Neil's had a few turns for him to. I guess Wyatt has a full grip though.
Why does it, like, if Wyatt lays a Day of Judgment? I mean, there's a second one where that came from. I mean, this is actually kind of where those Inquisitor Exarchs would come into play. We're dealing the last couple points of damage, right?
Oh wow! Yeah, the Inquisitor Exarchs actually provide reach to the deck.
Right, but there aren't any in Neil's deck list. So let's see. And that Battered Skull is going to gain Wyatt 4 life this turn. Oh no, there's a Mortar Pod off screen.
Yeah, so the Mortar Potted Sarah's Attendant blocks the Battered Skull, and then before damage shoots Wyatt in the face, putting Wyatt at 9.
Okay.
And now he's got lethal in the air.
Right. Let's. All right, so Wyatt just passes back. Is this it? Is Soul Sisters going to win and go into the last round looking for a top 8 berth?
Oh, man. I want to watch this deck again next round.
Yeah, I do too. All right. He equips it to a token of some sort.
Wolf.
A wolf token.
Wolf.
And there's the Ink Moth Nexus to block with, okay. But if he loses the Nexus, then he doesn't have 4 lands necessarily.
He has to, though. Like, what is he going to do? He has an Into the Royal. Never mind.
So he's gonna royal back the Saras.
Now he doesn't have to play the Saracen into the rat.
Right?
So afterward he's gonna like a super 1-mana Baneslayer Angel.
I mean, there's also the concern that Neil can Mortar Pot him out too.
6, 7, 8.
Now I don't think he has the
9,
mana to do it this turn.
10.
And that, let's see what happens. He's also just milled wide for 20 cards too, which puts him in a rough spot. All right, so he passes back. So Wyatt's sitting at 5 life. Wyatt's going to have access to 4 lands to Day of Judgment this turn, but he's going to drop to 4 life in the process from that Mortar Pod activation. And we know Neil has a Sarah's Ascendant in his hand. Now, maybe Neil suspects that Wyatt has a 3rd Day of Judgment because he discarded 1 already. But, so yeah, there we go. He blocks, shoots Wyatt, drops him to 4. And... oh, there's Gideon in Wyatt's hand, too.
That was a little close. Cast the wrong
I wonder
spell.
if Judge is going to be called over that.
And he took his hand off of it and everything.
I mean...
it was clearly his intention was cast of the day, though.
What we don't know is what he said. Okay, so
he might have said Day of Judgment as he did it, in which case it's definitely...
correct, yeah. The judge would let him go back, but, I can understand if he called the judge, but he doesn't. So, goes to a clean board, but Wyatt's sitting at 4, Neil at 44.
11 times the life
like
total.
A metamorph. All right, so we have, down comes Sarah Ascendant, I imagine?
Yeah, and then I think you just double suit him.
Gives him the Mortar Pod. So if you Day of Judgments, you can drop Wyatt down to 3.
Which is pretty relevant.
For 2, he gives it the sword too, why not?
I like it. I like this play a lot.
Can't Jace bounce it.
Yeah.
And especially because he knows Wyatt has the Jays too for the misstep last turn. The literal mental misstep that occurred.
I think, so Wyatt here is probably going to drop like a Gideon and +1, right?
Gideon is an option, or just Day of Judgment, wiping out that Sarah Ascendant. Because, the Sarah Ascendant's going to continue to be a problem. The Gideon is dead next turn if you +2 it.
Oh, I didn't see he had another day in his hands.
Oh, he had 3 at one point.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure he still has it. Isn't that what it is right there? Second card from the right? It's textless and it's foil.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely it then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember early in the game when he discarded, he had 3 in his hand, he fanned them all out. Oh, is there? A couple people on Twitter pointed this out. Where did Batterskull go?
He's Batterskull.
Hold on. We have to get a...
Hold on, we have to get a judge. Rashad.
Batterskull should be in play. It doesn't go away when Day of Judgment happens.
It doesn't. It hasn't come up yet, but it matters. This turn is when it would matter. So...
it doesn't matter this turn, but it's relevant knowledge.
Yeah, it is relevant, but I'm saying that it hasn't affected the game state yet, so solve it now before.
Yeah, before it's too late.
Or did he return it back to his hand?
Oh, it's just offside.
And false alarm.
It's fair enough. It makes sense.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of players scoop up their Batterskulls, or equipment in general when their creature dies. And when it happened, I was like, oh, where I figured that he would not put it down there, but I guess it just did. So all right, what is Wyatt gonna do here? So one thing you can do, if he plays that Squadron Hawk, he can block and then Gideon -2 on Sarah Ascendant the next turn. Nope, he just goes for the safe play.
Goes to 3.
He doesn't want something bad to happen. And he drops down to 3. Plus, if he has another creature, he could have just Mortar Potted the Squadron Hawk. So.
Yeah. It's safe to assume that Neil's got more creatures when he's playing the deck that he is.
And did he just gain a life from that? Because the Ascendant has lifelink, right?
Yeah, he actually gained a life from that also.
Thanks to Charlotte Sable on Twitter for pointing that out. right, so there's a Metamorph, which is a copy of Mortar Pod, so it has a germ token. So Wyatt's at a virtual 1 right now.
Wyatt is at a virtual run right now. I don't understand why you don't just copy Batterskull, because then you have an infinite creatures to sacrifice to the Mortar Pod. If you copy Batterskull, because you can sacrifice the germ that you get from the Batterskull.
And then you can return it to your hand.
And you can return it to your hand and replay it.
Maybe it is Batterskull. Like, I just figured it was Mortar Pod because it came down, but it's probably a Batterskull.
I think you pointed at the Mortar Pod, so I think you're right. But
yeah. Yep. So yes, he did. We got confirmation. He did copy the Mortar Pod. So there's 2 Mortar Pods. So for those of you just joining us, this is a Soul Sisters versus Cobblade. There's a Mortar Pod on a Sarah Ascendant on Neil's side of the board, and a Sort of Body in Mind, along with a Phyrexian Metamorphed Mortar Pod. And he shows the Relic Order, and he concedes. Soul Sisters takes it down.
Wow. And that thing is awesome. And now, there's a deck that we have, thought had completely